What if you're living in the very moment when God's seals are breaking and you don't even know it? What if everything happening around you, wars, chaos, collapsing empires, crowds wandering without direction, is not random, but part of an ancient plan, now unfolding before your eyes? Ezekiel was just a man, a priest in exile, one among thousands taken to Babylon, eyes weary from witnessing ruins, knees wounded from praying for a return that never came. But in the 30th year of his life, while the people looked down in defeat, he looked up and saw the heavens open, not like clouds parting in a storm, but like a dimension being torn, revealing not only glory, but the hidden machinery of a kingdom that never stops moving. Ezekiel didn't see angels with golden wings or harps in their hands. He saw storm, lightning, beings that defied human logic, creatures with 4 faces and eyes covering every inch of their bodies, wheels within wheels spinning in every direction, yet never leaving their axis. And above them, a throne, floating, with a figure seated in fire, surrounded by splendor and dread. None of it made sense. And yet, Ezekiel knew he was standing before a coded message for the end of days. But here's what few understand. These visions weren't just poetic images or chaotic symbols. They were codes, seals, signs, fragments of a design that only reveals itself to those who dare see prophecy not as metaphor, but as map. And what struck Ezekiel most, those creatures were not ornaments of the throne. They were its very foundation. Each one, the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle, carried a seal. 4 spiritual forces, 4 manifestations of judgment and redemption. They were not symbols. They were entities, spirits, principalities, prepared to act at the appointed time, and that time may have already begun. While the world watches the wars, the kingdom shaking, the skies filling with smoke, the 4 seals have begun to stir. But what do they truly represent? Why does each creature carry a face? And what does this impossible fusion mean between animal nature, human awareness, and divine vigilance? Perhaps to understand, you must first look at the fiercest among them, the one who does not wait, the one who roars before he strikes. The first seal is the lion. Of the 4 living creatures that uphold the throne of the Most High, the first face is that of a lion, and that is no artistic flourish. In God's language, no form is random. Every symbol is a sentence. And when glory chooses to rest upon the face of a lion, it means something fierce is about to unfold. The lion is more than the king of the wild. In Scripture, it represents authority, kingship, and judgment. It is the roar that precedes the strike. It is divine justice clothed in raw instinct. But what few understand is this. The creature didn't roar in a forest. It roared before the throne, in the presence of God, as if declaring the days of mercy are ending and the time of judgment draws near. When Ezekiel saw this being, he did not see a sacred animal. He saw the first seal begin to stir, because the lion represents more than majesty. It is the awakening of the spiritual powers that govern earthly thrones, governments, empires, systems. How many times in history has the spirit of the lion roared in the courts of kings? It was this seal that moved when Nebuchadnezzar seized Jerusalem. It was this roar behind the choices of Cyrus, Alexander, Caesar, rulers who, without knowing it, were pieces on a greater board. This is the seal of dominion. When it is released, nations shift, empires rise, alliances break, and leaders become instruments of heaven or of darkness. But there is something deeper still. This lion is not only in heaven, it walks the earth as well, because the spirit that roars before the throne also stirs within men. Rulers driven by hunger for control. Religious leaders craving glory instead of the cross. Crowds entranced by the illusion of power, all signs that the first seal is active. And when the lion roars, the other creatures move, because the lion's seal is what sets the wheel in motion. Without dominion, there is no oppression. Without kingship, no slavery. Without control, no rebellion. But what happens when the spirit of dominion spins out of control? When the lion's seal is corrupted and begins to devour its own flock? That is when the second seal begins to stir, the seal of the ox. When the lion roars, kingdoms rise. But who holds the empire once it's built? The second living creature had the face of an ox. Ezekiel saw it, still, unmoving, silent. But make no mistake, the silence of the ox is not weakness. It is a warning. In the language of biblical symbols, the ox represents strength, endurance, service, and sacrifice. It was the most used animal on the altars, the most sacrificed in the tabernacle, the most essential to sustain a nation. But here, before the throne of God, it is not being used. It is watching, vigilant, unshaken, because the seal of the ox reveals a profound spiritual truth. After dominion comes the burden of upkeep. Every empire, every structure, every glory built by the lion's roar requires sweat, blood, and servitude. The spirit of the ox operates behind the curtains of power, in the machinery of governments, in the weight of taxes, in the pressure laid upon the working class. It is the ox that carries the burdens no one sees. It is the ox that keeps the wheel turning, and because of that, it grows weary too. How many peoples have been crushed under the weight of empires? How many cultures, languages, and histories erased beneath regimes that demanded sacrifice for the sake of order? The seal of the ox is not evil by nature, but when it's corrupted, it becomes the spirit of captivity. And this is where judgment begins to burn. Because when the ox grows tired, when the spirit of sacrifice is exploited, when the people bleed to uphold a system built on control, the kingdom responds. Because the ox also represents the suffering of the righteous, those who carry burdens without complaint, who serve, who pray, who persist, even when there is no reward. These are the ones heaven watches with eyes of fire. And when the spirit of the ox is trampled, when the structure feeds on the pain of the humble, a new seal begins to stir, and it is the most mysterious of them all, for it bears not the face of a beast, nor of a bird, but of a man. The third face that upheld the glory was not that of a beast, nor of a sacred bird. It was the face of a man. Ezekiel saw it, and he froze, because while the other seals bore strength, servitude, or majesty, this one carried awareness, but it also carried something more: free will. The seal of the man represents the most complex dimension of creation, the only being made in the image and likeness of God, and also the only one capable of betraying that image. This human face carved into celestial beings is a mirror to the earth. It reflects what was meant to rule with justice, but that, over the centuries, drowned in greed, pride, and delusion. This is the seal of moral judgment. When it is activated, God does not judge thrones. He judges intentions. He does not judge armies. He judges hearts. He does not judge empires. He judges individuals, because within man is hidden what is most sacred and what is most abominable. This seal is triggered when the others fail, when the lion's roar becomes oppression, when the ox's burden becomes crushing. It is then that man stands at the center of the heavenly tribunal, and the question is asked in silence: what have you done with what I gave you? I gave you dominion. I gave you power to build. I gave you the ability to love. I gave you the image of the eternal. And what did you do with it? It was this seal that judged Cain, that confronted David, that humbled Nebuchadnezzar, and that redeemed the thief on the cross. This is the seal of responsibility, when heaven turns its gaze deep into the soul of each man and decides guilt or redemption. But it is also the seal of hope, because if the lion is the one who rules and the ox is the one who suffers, man is the one who can choose. This seal carries the seed of change. It is the moment where everything can be reversed, where even the exiled, the broken, the betrayer can be transformed. But for that to happen, he must look up. He must lift his eyes from the dust and see beyond. And when that happens, when man breaks the limits of flesh and touches spirit, then the fourth seal descends and it flies. Before we dive into the next seal, I'd like to ask you for something simple. If you're enjoying this journey, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Whether it's praise or criticism, your voice matters here. This channel welcomes all opinions with respect. Now, let me tell you about the seal of the eagle. Four living beings upheld the glory. The last of them did not walk, did not roar, did not bear burdens. It flew. Ezekiel described it with reverence. The fourth living creature was like an eagle in flight, not perched, not at rest atop the temple, but soaring, swift, high, with its eyes fixed on the heavens and its talons ready to strike. This is the seal of divine intervention, the seal of prophetic vision. It does not move in man's time, but in God's. If the lion rules, the ox serves, and a man chooses, the eagle reveals, because it sees what others cannot. From above, it beholds the conspiracies within palaces, the weeping in the villages, the blood crying out from the earth, and the silence of heaven about to break. The eagle is the spiritual response to human collapse. It represents the prophets, those who speak when no one wants to listen, who cry out when silence is safer, who declare judgment and proclaim restoration. Isaiah once wrote, "But those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." This is not merely a symbol of strength, it is a code of ascension. The seal of the eagle is activated when the systems of man fail, when the path is lost, when the sacred is profaned and the temple becomes a marketplace. Then it descends, not as a common bird, but as a messenger, as a trumpet, as thunder. That is why John, in Revelation, sees it again. But this time, the eagle cries out in a loud voice across the skies, "Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth." It is no longer a whisper. It is an alarm. It is judgment. Because when the fourth and final seal is revealed, it means something is about to rupture in the spiritual architecture of the world. The glory is no longer hidden. It moves. It speaks. It calls. And the eagle is the trumpet. This seal also speaks of prophetic acceleration, visions, dreams, sudden awakenings. It is the moment when multitudes begin to hear the call, but only a few respond, because the eagle flies alone. It does not follow the flock. It rises where the oxygen of the flesh can no longer sustain. And at that point, when it breaks through the atmosphere and touches the invisible, something extraordinary occurs. The winged creature beholds something even more mysterious, a celestial mechanism, a mystery in constant motion, a wheel within a wheel. After Ezekiel beheld the four creatures, the lion, the ox, the man, and the eagle, something even more mysterious began to emerge before his eyes. It was not a being. It was not a voice. It was a structure in motion, and he described it with trembling in his soul. And behold, there was a wheel on the earth beside the living creatures. Its appearance and its workmanship were like the gleam of beryl. And there was a wheel within a wheel inside another wheel, spinning in perfect synchronization, yet with no human logic, because they did not turn where they were directed. They moved in any direction, without deviating. This is the representation of God's time. Chronos swallowed by Kairos. The present turning within eternity, the invisible movement of the divine plan, seemingly chaotic, but precisely aligned. Ezekiel didn't see the future or the past. He saw time happening all at once. He saw destiny unfolding while men believed they were standing still. That's why he said the rims of the wheels were full of eyes all around. Eyes inside, outside, and all around. Because this wasn't just a heavenly machine. It was the very gaze of God in motion. This is where many lose their way. They think God is distant, that everything is spiraling out of control, that evil has won. But they don't realize there's a secret mechanism turning, waiting for the appointed time to reveal itself. Ezekiel saw that the wheels did not move by their own will, but in harmony with the spirit of the living creatures. When the creatures rose, the wheels rose. When they stopped, the wheels stopped. It was as if God's plan was synchronized with the manifestation of His glory. The wheels are not just mechanisms. They are consequences. They move only when heaven decides to act. And perhaps now, in this moment, those wheels are turning once again. You can't see them, but they are there. When an empire rises, when a kingdom falls, when a war begins, when a prophet awakens, the wheels turn, turning with eyes, with judgment, with mercy. And that's why Ezekiel never saw the creatures acting in isolation. He saw everything connected, because the living beings, the wings, the lightning, and the wheels did not move on their own. They moved with purpose. And what is that purpose? Ezekiel lifted his eyes above the wheels, above the creatures, above the wings that touched one another. There was something more, a throne, and upon the throne, someone. After the celestial creatures, after the wheels within wheels, after the eyes that turned silently between dimensions, Ezekiel saw something no man had ever described before. He saw the throne, not a throne of stone, not of gold, but a throne that appeared to be made of burning sapphire, elevated above a crystalline firmament, shining like the heavens in the midst of a storm. And then, upon that throne, someone was seated. Ezekiel dares not speak a name. He does not describe a face, because what he saw cannot be spoken. He simply tries to translate the untranslatable. And I saw something like the appearance of a man seated above it. From the waist up, it looked like glowing metal blazing with fire all around. From the waist down, it looked like fire, and there was a brilliant light surrounding him. This figure is not just an image. It is not a symbol. It is the visible expression of the invisible. The throne stands firm, but the one upon it is wrapped in glory, fire, molten metal, light that consumes. It is the very reflection of the eternal. Some scholars believe this vision is a theophany, a visible manifestation of God himself. Others say Ezekiel saw the glorified Messiah, the same one John would describe centuries later in Revelation, with eyes like flames of fire and a face shining like the sun. What is certain is that Ezekiel could not withstand it. And when I saw it, I fell face down. He didn't stand. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to comprehend. He surrendered, because in the presence of true glory, man does not argue. He bows. And it is in that moment, prostrate, overwhelmed in awe, that he hears the voice, not a common voice, but one that comes from above the firmament, that breaks the silence between realms. And it does not speak to angels, nor to cherubim. It speaks to him. Son of man, stand on your feet, and I will speak to you. This is the moment everything shifts. What was a terrifying, glorious vision becomes a personal calling, because the glory did not come to be observed, it came to be declared. Ezekiel did not just see, he was summoned. And what comes next is not merely a mission. It is the beginning of a spiritual rupture. For when the seals begin to open, when heaven speaks, and when man responds, something begins to move across the realms. And among the lightning, the creatures, and the throne, the 7 seals finally begin to break open. Throughout the vision, Ezekiel witnessed images that made no sense at first glance. 4 living creatures, flaming eyes, interlocking wheels, suspended thrones, and a burning figure no one dared to name. But now, after being laid low before the unnameable, after being lifted by the voice from above, Ezekiel understands. It was only the beginning. These visions were not meant to entertain. They came to declare, and what is about to be declared cannot be undone. The Bible does not explicitly speak of seals here, as it does in Revelation, but spiritually, what Ezekiel witnesses is the unveiling of hidden truths, truths that had long been sealed from human understanding, as if heaven began turning keys long forgotten, as if ancient gates began to groan once more, and the heavens rushed to move, because the earth was already late. It is in this moment that the prophet sees the glory of the Lord rising from the living creatures and beginning to move. The glory that had remained suspended still now begins to shift toward the east. And this change in direction means only one thing. God is leaving the temple. Ezekiel sees the unspeakable, the glory of God departing from the holy place. And when God departs, there is no more protection, no more covenant. Jerusalem will be handed over to judgment, but before that, before destruction comes, God reveals the secrets. He breaks the seals, and among those seals is the mark. Yes, Ezekiel is taken into another vision within the vision, and he sees an angel with an inkwell, marking the foreheads of the righteous in the city. Put a mark on the foreheads of those who sigh and cry over all the abominations. It is separation. It is the divine dividing line. It is the invisible spiritual seal that distinguishes those who belong to God, even amid chaos. Judgment is coming, but before it arrives, the seals are opened, and those with eyes see, those with ears hear, and those with broken hearts receive the mark. This is when Ezekiel understands these visions are not about the past. They are about the days to come, days when heaven will seal its children, when the gates of the temple will be closed, but the portals of the Spirit will be opened, days when the name of God will no longer dwell in stone buildings, but will be written within the hearts of those who belong to Him. Seals of glory, seals of fire, Seals that no king, no nation, and no demon can erase. Seals that point to the final sign, when the very throne Ezekiel saw will descend once again. Now that you've seen the seals, the blazing lion, the ox with eternal eyes, the man with a pure face, the eagle in full flight, the wheels within wheels, the throne of burning sapphire, and the glory rising to leave the temple, you begin to realize none of this was too symbolic. None of it was just ancient history. It was code. It was warning. It was key. Ezekiel didn't have a vision for his time. He saw our time, a time when the seals are no longer locked, when the voices are no longer silent, when the glory is no longer confined to stone temples, but is searching for marked hearts. Because the eyes of the eagle still watch, the wheels still turn in perfect rhythm, and the throne is still wrapped in fire, waiting for the appointed moment to intervene. And the question that lingers is, did you see the seals, or did you pass by them as if they were just myths? Because if you've come this far, something has already been awakened. You may not know what it is, but something in your spirit recognized the call. This isn't entertainment. It's not curiosity. It is heaven whispering to those who can hear. And that's why I need to ask you something. If this message touched your heart, if you felt something stirring deep within, then support this channel. Subscribe, activate the bell, leave your comment, share this video, not so the algorithm sees us, but so others can see the glory that is now moving, because the seals of Ezekiel are not forgotten stories. They are signs that time is closing. And if you want to keep uncovering hidden prophecies, to understand the spiritual codes that connect the past to the apocalypse, then click on the video now appearing on your screen, because the next one we're going to explore may hold the missing key to your understanding.